Prince Caspian. The Return to Narnia is the fourth book published in C.S. Lewis's The Chronicles of Narnia series, though it is second in chronological order. The novel continues the adventures of the Pevensie siblings, Peter, Susan, Edmund, and Lucy, as they return to the magical world of Narnia to help Prince Caspian reclaim his throne from the tyrannical rule of his uncle, King Miraz. The story begins with the Pevensie siblings waiting at a train station in England, preparing to return to their respective schools after a holiday. Unexpectedly, they feel a strange sensation as if they are being pulled by an invisible force, and suddenly find themselves in a thickly wooded area which is completely unfamiliar to them. As they explore their surroundings, they gradually realize that they have been magically transported back to Narnia. However, Narnia has changed significantly since their last visit. The once familiar landscape has transformed, and the castle of Caer Paravel, where they once ruled as kings and queens, now lies in ruins. It dawns on the Pevensies that many centuries have passed in Narnia since they left, even though only a year has passed in their world. They discover the ruins of their former castle, and as they explore further, they come across ancient relics that confirm their identity as the former rulers of Narnia. The sense of time having moved on without them is palpable, and they feel a deep sense of loss and nostalgia as they realize how much has changed. The narrative then shifts to the story of Prince Caspian, a young boy who is the rightful heir to the throne of Narnia. Caspian is the nephew of the current king, Miraz, who has usurped the throne by killing Caspian's father. Raised by his uncle and aunt, Caspian has been taught to believe that the old stories of Narnia, tales of talking animals, dwarfs, and other magical creatures, are mere myths. However, Caspian's interest in these tales is piqued when his nurse secretly tells him stories of old Narnia, planting a seed of curiosity and wonder in his mind. Caspian's life takes a significant turn when his nurse is dismissed, and he is assigned a new tutor, Dr. Cornelius. Cornelius, a half-dwarf, reveals to Caspian the true history of Narnia, explaining that the old tales are not just stories, but the actual history of the land. He tells Caspian that the Narnians once lived in peace, ruled by noble kings and queens, including the Pevensies, before the Telmarines, Caspian's ancestors, invaded and conquered the land. Cornelius also reveals to Caspian that he is the true heir to the throne and urges him to flee the palace and seek out the old Narnians who still live in hiding. One night, after a heated argument with his uncle, Caspian flees the palace. He takes with him Queen Susan's horn, an ancient artifact that is said to summon aid when blown. Caspian sets out on a journey to find the old Narnians and rally them to his cause. He eventually stumbles upon a group of old Narnians, including a badger named Truffle Hunter and dwarfs Knickerbrick and Trumpkin. Initially, the old Narnians are suspicious of Caspian, wary of his Telmarine heritage. However, they are soon convinced of his sincerity and recognize his desire to restore Narnia to its former glory. As Caspian gathers more followers, the old Narnians begin to rally around him. His growing army includes centaurs, fauns, talking animals, and other creatures who have long been in hiding under the oppressive rule of the Telmarines. Caspian's forces take refuge in Aslan's How, an ancient underground fortress built over the remains of the stone table where Aslan sacrificed himself to save Edmund in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Aslan's How becomes the central base for the old Narnians as they prepare to wage war against Miraz. Meanwhile, King Miraz, upon learning of the growing rebellion, marshals his army to crush the insurgents. Caspian's forces are vastly outnumbered and lack the military power of the Telmarines, making their situation increasingly desperate. Despite the odds, Caspian is determined to fight for the freedom of Narnia. On the advice of Dr. Cornelius, Caspian blows Queen Susan's horn, hoping it will summon the legendary kings and queens of Narnia, though he does not know where they are or if they will come. Back in the present, the Pevensies are still exploring the ruins of Caer Paravel when they encounter a dwarf named Trumpkin. Trumpkin was captured by Miraz soldiers while on his way to find the Pevensies, but he managed to escape. The Pevensies rescue Trumpkin from his captors and learn from him about the current state of Narnia and Caspian's plight. Trumpkin, initially skeptical of the Pevensies' abilities and their claim to be the ancient kings and queens of Narnia, is soon convinced of their identity after witnessing their courage and skill in battle. Trumpkin agrees to lead the Pevensies to Caspian, but the journey is fraught with challenges. The landscape of Narnia has changed drastically, and the once familiar paths are now treacherous and difficult to navigate. The group faces several dangers, including attacks from Miraz's soldiers and the hazards of the untamed wilderness. Throughout the journey, Lucy begins to have visions of Aslan, the great lion and true king of Narnia, but the others dismiss her sightings as mere imagination. Lucy's unwavering faith in Aslan is a central theme in the story, as she represents the belief in the unseen and the power of hope. As they continue their journey, the group becomes increasingly lost and discouraged. However, Lucy continues to insist that she sees Aslan, and eventually the others are forced to acknowledge that she may be right. Aslan finally appears to all of them, and his presence revitalizes their spirits. He guides them through the forest to Caspian's camp, and as they travel, Aslan awakens the land itself, reawakening the trees and rivers that had been dormant under Miraz's rule. The old Narnians are heartened by the signs of Aslan's return, and their hope for victory is renewed. Upon reaching Caspian's camp, the Pevensies are reunited with the young prince. Peter, as the High King of Narnia, takes command of the military strategy. Knowing that they are vastly outnumbered by Miraz's forces, Peter decides to challenge Miraz to single combat, a duel to decide the fate of Narnia. Miraz, though reluctant, is goaded into accepting the challenge by his own lords, who secretly wish to see him fall so they can seize power for themselves. The duel between Peter and Miraz is a tense and evenly matched battle. Both are skilled fighters, and the outcome remains uncertain as they clash with swords. However, the treachery of Miraz's lords comes into play as they provoke a full-scale battle by accusing the Narnians of cheating. In the ensuing chaos, Miraz is killed by one of his own men, leading to a brutal battle between the Narnians and the Telmarines. Despite being outnumbered, the Narnians fight with courage and determination, inspired by the presence of the Pevensies and the hope of a restored Narnia. The battle is fierce, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. However, the tide begins to turn in favor of the Narnians as Aslan's return brings with it the awakening of the land itself. The old Narnians, now fully rallied, fight with renewed vigor, and the Telmarines begin to falter. At the height of the battle, Aslan himself appears, accompanied by creatures from Narnia's deep past, including Bacchus and Silenus. Their arrival brings a wild, joyous energy to the battlefield, overwhelming the remaining Telmarines who are unable to withstand the full force of Narnia's ancient magic. The Narnians emerge victorious, and the remnants of Miraz's army surrender. With the battle won, Aslan crowns Prince Caspian as the rightful king of Narnia. The Pevensies and the old Narnians celebrate the restoration of the kingdom, and peace is restored to the land. However, Aslan informs the Pevensies that it is time for Peter and Susan to return to their world permanently, as they are too old to return to Narnia in the future. This news is bittersweet for the siblings, as they have grown to love Narnia and their roles as its rulers. Nevertheless, they accept Aslan's decision, understanding that their time in Narnia has come to an end. Aslan also addresses the remaining Telmarines, offering them a choice. They can stay in Narnia under Caspian's rule, or they can return to their original world, as their ancestors came from Earth long ago. Most of the Telmarines, disillusioned with their defeat and weary of war, choose to leave. Aslan creates a magical door through which the Telmarines pass, returning to their ancestral homeland. This act symbolizes the closing of one chapter in Narnia's history and the beginning of a new era under Caspian's rule. As the Pevensies prepare to leave Narnia, they bid farewell to their friends and allies. Peter and Susan are particularly sad to leave, knowing they will never return to the land that has become so dear to them. However, they are comforted by the knowledge that they have fulfilled their roles as kings and queens, and that Narnia is now in good hands with Caspian as its ruler. Edmund and Lucy are also reluctant to leave, but they are hopeful that they might return someday, as Aslan has hinted that their adventures in Narnia are not yet over. The book ends with the Pevensies stepping through the magical door created by Aslan, returning to the train station in England where they had been before their journey began. No time has passed in their world, and they are left to reflect on their adventure as they resume their normal lives. Although they are back in their own world, the memories of Narnia remain vivid in their minds, and they carry with them the lessons they have learned and the friendships they have formed. Well, that does it for our summary of Prince Caspian, The Return to Narnia. As always, remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more content for the soul. Take care, and God bless.